Hi, it's Clemmy from the NARM Clinic, and this week's video I'm going to be talking about stress and what we can do during stressful times to help reduce the impact it has on our body and hopefully reduce the risk of the impact that it's going to have on our IBD. So managing our stress and reducing stress is a hugely important part of everyone's life, but it's a particularly important part of your life if you have inflammatory bowel disease. So increased stress can hugely reduce our quality of life. It can also exacerbate symptoms of IBD, even if you're not in a period of flare-up. So it can cause things like digestive discomfort, pain, bloating, etc. But it can actually also lead to relapse and to flares in some people. So it's a hugely important part of managing the condition longer term. So first of all, how does stress affect us? So stress affects us in many, many different ways. But in terms of how it affects our gut, first of all, it can affect the intestinal barrier. So that's the lining of the intestine. So it can affect the links between our gut cells and it can make them more permeable. And that can then allow things through that shouldn't go through, things like bacteria and perhaps food components, and that can trigger an immune response or inflammation. Secondly, it can really have an impact on the bacteria that live within us. So we know the bacteria are there to help to keep us healthy. It can really disturb the balance and alter the makeup of that bacteria. And actually a disturbance in the gut microbiota is a causal factor in the onset of IBD. And we think it's also something that can trigger flare-ups as well. The other thing is intestinal dysmotility, and this means that basically it's when our gut doesn't work properly at moving its contents through, so things like food, drink, also medication, it doesn't move it along efficiently. So stress can slow the movement of our small intestine, but it can increase the movement of our large intestine, and hence that's why we often experience diarrhea when we're stressed, because of that increased movement in our large intestine. And the last one I want to touch on, which is really important again in IBD, is it can impact our immune and neuroendocrine function. So that means it can impact the way that our immune system and our hormones work. And these things help to send messages around our body. And again, immune dysfunction is another causal factor for the onset of IBD. So as you can see, there's lots of different ways that it can impact us. So it's really important that we look at how we manage our stress. Now, if you want to know more about stress, about why I think it's quite misunderstood, about what actually happens in our bodies when we're stressed, and what chronic long-term stress does to our body, then head over to the blog that accompanies this video. I've gone into things in a lot more detail, but for the purpose of trying to keep this video a bit shorter, I am going to go straight into the tips of how we can support ourselves and what we can do. So first of all, before I even begin with that, I want to just put in a caveat that if you feel like the stress you're under, you're struggling to cope and it's getting too much, then it's really, really important that you seek professional help. So whilst there's the things that I'm going to go through that we can do every day to help support us, if it's all getting too much, then it's really important that you go and seek help. And things like cognitive behavioural therapy, so CBT, and also gut-directed hypnotherapy have been shown to help improve gut symptoms and improve coping with IBD. So that's something that's really important, that you get the help if you need it. Now, it's obviously not feasible for us to remove all the stress in our lives, but what we do have the ability to do is to manage the stress that we're under that's within our control, and to also counteract it, so making sure that we're looking after ourselves proportionately to the amount of stress that we're under. So I like to say basically we need to look after our stress levels and our health a bit like our bank account. So we don't want to be spending out more than we're putting into our bank account, like our health account. So if we're spending more, so if we're under more stress, then we need to be putting more in. We need to be doing more things that are going to support our health and support our stress levels, so reduce them. So my top 7 tips for how we can reduce stress. Number 1, really important and comes from the food that we eat. So it's really important that we balance our energy levels and balance our blood sugar levels. Now, I'm going to explain that in a little bit more detail. So when we eat foods containing carbohydrates, they are broken down into single glucose molecules, and they are then absorbed into our bloodstream, and they increase our blood sugar levels. Now, if we eat very refined carbohydrates, so things that have had the fibre stripped from them, because fibre is one of the things that helps slow down our digestion, then you can get a really big spike, but then what follows that is a really big fall. And when you get that fall, when you're in the bottom of that blood sugar crash, adrenaline is released by our body, which is obviously one of our stress hormones, and that then triggers the release of stored glucose to get our levels back up again. And that in itself, because it's triggering our body to release adrenaline, is actually causing a stress on our body. And that's something that we can certainly help to avoid by looking at what we're eating. Also, when we're in that dip, we sometimes feel hangry, we feel depressed, we feel anxious, and just pretty rubbish. So we want to try and avoid those dips if we can. So things that we can do is making sure that we have protein and healthy fats with each meal and snack, because this really helps to slow down the digestion and breakdown of those carbohydrates in our meals. So protein and healthy fats, so things like meat, poultry, fish, eggs, beans, pulses, lentils, also nuts and seeds. And our healthy fats are things like our olive oils, again, nuts and seeds, and also things like cheeses and avocados as well is another one. Also opting, as I've touched on as well, for carbohydrates with a bit more fibre in them, because these are more slowly digested and broken down. So for example, things like whole grains, so our whole grain or brown rice, jumbo oats rather than the ground up oats, also fruits and vegetables, rather than having our lower fibre ones like our white bread and our sugary snacks. Now, there's something there. If you're going through a flare, or perhaps there's some high fibre foods that you can't tolerate, then don't worry, that's okay. Just focus on getting those protein and healthy fats in with your meals to help stabilise those energy levels. Number 2 is providing our bodies with the nutrients that they need to function and recover properly. So during times of stress, we often use up quite a lot of different nutrients, and our need for different nutrients might increase. So particularly nutrients like magnesium, vitamin C, zinc, and omega-3. So these nutrients are really important for our bodies to function properly and for our immune systems as well. So we really need to make sure that we include different foods that have these nutrients in them each day when we feel that we're under a bit more stress. So we find magnesium in things like whole grains, legumes, pumpkin seeds as well, our green leafy vegetables, dark chocolate, tofu, and then nuts, things like Brazil nuts, cashew nuts, almonds. And all these are going to be written on the blog as well. So if you can't keep up with the video, then head over to the blog and you can see these are all written down, these foods. So vitamin C, things like our fruits and vegetables, so red peppers, kiwi, kale, cauliflower berries, etc. Zinc, our highest amounts of zinc are actually found in oysters, but I know that they're not everyone's cup of tea and also not that easy to get hold of. But things like liver, beef, lamb, and also pumpkin seeds and beans if you're looking at your more plant-based sources. And then finally, our omega-3s. So omega-3s are found, the best sources are from oily fish, so salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and also herring. But also we find omega-3s, which are our fatty acids, in nuts and seeds like chia seeds, flax seeds, and walnuts. So number 3, Daily meditation practice. So just 10 minutes a day, using a guided meditation, perhaps using an app like Calm or Headspace are really good ones that I recommend quite a lot. I use the Calm app. I think it's really good. And that can have a real impact on our stress levels. It can basically take us away from everything that we're experiencing around us and get us to focus on us and our breathing and take us away from that stressful situation. So meditation actually has some really other interesting research behind it. It can increase our ability to cope with pain, and it can actually even help to reduce our sensitivity to pain as well. And again, it can help improve our sleep, it can help improve our concentration span and our brain function. So it really has so many beneficial impacts. So I've got a challenge for you here. Download one of those apps that I spoke about. Both of them have a certain amount of free content. So that's Headspace or Calm. And for the next 7 days, do a 10-minute meditation practice every day. It's something that a tip, I guess, is something it's quite good to do in the morning, and then it's less easy to forget to do it, and it can also start your day in really the right frame of mind. Number 4 is yoga and movement. So studies have shown the effectiveness of yoga in helping to control IBS and digestive type symptoms related to stress. And movement and exercise is also a really, really important part of our health and managing stress and managing anxiety. And those endorphins that you get make us feel good when we exercise. So even if you can only manage a really short yoga practice at home, or perhaps just even a walk around the block, every little bit of movement really helps. So my 2 favourite YouTube workouts at the moment, I really like Joe Wicks, the body coach. He does short 20-minute HIIT sessions that can be done without any equipment at home. And my favourite yoga instructor is my wonderful cousin Sophie Deer. She has some YouTube videos as well, and they're really great for kind of real-time at-home workouts. So number 5 is get outside. Now, as I said at the beginning, I'm filming this during coronavirus lockdown, so if you're watching at a later date, maybe this doesn't apply so much, but at the moment we're only allowed out once a day, but we are still allowed out once a day, and walking in nature and in a green space for just 20 minutes has been shown to really help lower cortisol levels. That's our stress hormone. So try and get outside while you can, even if it's just for 20 minutes, just a quick walk around the block. It can be really helpful. For me personally, I find getting outside in nature is so important when I'm stressed, and it's something that I'm trying to do every day at the moment because I know that it really helps me. And with all of these things, it's finding the ones that really work for you. Number 6 is prioritising me time every day. So often we're being pulled between family and friends and work and everything, but it's really important that we take time for ourselves, to do something for ourselves that's relaxing and restorative. So this doesn't have to take a long time, so just 10 minutes like the meditation that we talked about, but just taking time to stop. And that can be having a bath, reading a book, doing some colouring, painting, playing a musical instrument, whatever helps you to relax and switch off. And last but certainly not least is number 7, and that's breathe. And I know this one might sound like a strange one, but it can be really, really transformational. So when we're stressed or anxious, we often breathe very short, shallow breaths. And that's kind of our body's natural response when we're stressed. But what we can do is we can help to reverse that by consciously breathing deep breaths. So deep breaths right into our chest, right into our belly. And that can really help to kind of switch us and switch our kind of thinking. And also while we're concentrating on our breath, we're not concentrating on whatever the stressful situation that we're in at the time. Now, this is something that, as I said, I've learned is really, really super helpful. Before every single talk that I do in front of a group of people, I take myself off and I do a few breathing exercises just to make sure that I'm calm and that I'm focused, and it's really good. So just closing your eyes, or even just keeping your eyes open and relaxed, but focusing on you and your breath. So breathing in for 4 seconds and then out for 6 seconds. can really help. So you can, if you want, to put your hand on your chest or on your belly so that you can feel your breath coming in and out, but do this about 10 or 20 times, and this can be really helpful, as I said. Anyway, I hope those tips are helpful. This has been a slightly longer video, so I apologise for that, but I hope that they've been useful, and I hope that the tips are something that you can use at the moment and going forward to help you through this difficult time. But we'll see you again next week, and take care.